Hey everybody, good to be here. I want to talk today about hard tech. In 2020, Mark Andreessen wrote, "It's time to build." And over the last 5 years, we've been having a conversation about what that means. But this time, something's changed. In 2025, Chairman Carr took the helm at the FCC and he announced what he called his Build America agenda. It's an agenda that's comprised of a series of pillars that include restoring American leadership in wireless, boosting America's space economy, cutting red tape, modernizing the agency's operations, protecting America's telecom workforce. And I want to talk about the numbers because I think the numbers matter. In less than 12 months, we have deleted more than 1,100 rules and regulations from the Code of Federal Regulations. We've closed more than 2,000 dormant dockets, and we've reduced satellite application backlogs by half. This isn't regulatory reform. This is a regulatory rewiring. And here's why it matters. Here's why this is also very important. We are on the cusp of the most important moment in hard tech since the first space race. And some of that hard tech will include orbital data centers, massive LEO constellations, counter-UAS defense and drone swarms, next generation wireless or 6G. These aren't apps, these are atoms. Atoms need infrastructure, not just digital infrastructure, but physical infrastructure, towers, spectrum, fiber, launch capacity, the whole shebang. And that's a shift from the last 20 years. When we focused on digitalization, when we optimized for software, and we built incredible things over those 20 or 30 years with just server racks and JavaScript. But the next chapter, the AI chapter, the space chapter, the abundance chapter, requires us to build physical things at physical scale. And that means we need regulatory infrastructure that moves at the pace of today's technology, not telecom regulations from the 1970s. On infrastructure, we're streamlining pole attachment rules, which sounds extremely boring until you realize that pole attachments are the literal bottleneck that prevents thousands of communities from getting gigabit internet service. We're taking a hard look at state and local regulations that pose as barriers to broadband infrastructure. In our house, not in my backyard is not in our backyard, and it's not welcome. On spectrum, we're looking at opening up 20,000 megahertz of spectrum for satellite broadband. We're committing to auction up to 800 megahertz of terrestrial spectrum by 2034, and up to 180 megahertz of the upper C-band in 2027. Earlier in 25, we opened up 600 megahertz of spectrum in the lower 37 gigahertz band for fixed wireless and IoT. And we're also letting the market create builder wings. In 2025, we saw deal flow that sent hundreds of megahertz of prime spectrum into the hands who could put that spectrum to more productive use. And this is what happens when policy aligns with the core insight of abundance. The default should be to yes. Yes to building, yes to deployment, yes to putting infrastructure in the hands of people who will actually use it. But let's talk about what we're doing about hard tech specifically, since that's the topic of my remarks today. The satellite modernization agenda is the clearest example of what we're doing on hard tech. The FCC is replacing an antiquated licensing process that was built decades ago. We're replacing it, root and branch, with an assembly line process that can match the hockey stick of satellites that are being launched in the low Earth orbit. We're revisiting technical rules from decades ago that are throttling satellite broadband capacity by up to 180%. I want you to think about that. 180% capacity gains, all without launching a new satellite or releasing more spectrum, just by removing outdated regulatory constraints that were adopted decades ago. Imagine that. We enabled faster direct-to-cell service at higher power levels. We're streamlining Earth stations. And that all matters because space tech is hard tech. LEO constellations are hard tech. The computer clusters in outer space that'll train our frontier models, that's hard tech. The next generation of autonomous systems, whether vehicles, drones, robotics, they all need ubiquitous, low latency, high throughput connections. That's hard tech. And hard tech needs hard infrastructure. And it needs regulatory frameworks that treat infrastructure as a positive sum activity, not zero sum based on mentalities of scarcity, rationing, and degrowth. The national security dimension of hard tech is also critical, and we're doing stuff at the FCC on that. We stood up a Council on National Security to look at threats from foreign adversaries. We cracked down on testing by labs that had been controlled by foreign governments. We executed Operation Clean Cards to remove millions of listings of prohibited devices. We adopted new undersea cable rules that are critical for global connectivity. And this is critical because you can't have a hard tech stack without a secure tech stack. You can't have transformative technology built on vulnerable foundations. The build agenda also must be secure what you build. So I talked about what we've done on hard tech. Here's what I think this means for the broader community. Number one, the opportunity window is open. The regulatory velocity is increasing. The application backlogs are clearing. We have a real spectrum pipeline in visibility. Lots of spectrum is coming online. If you're waiting for the infrastructure to come, I think the moment is arriving. Number two, think bigger. When 20,000 megahertz of new satellite spectrum is coming online, when LEO capacity constraints are being removed, when direct-to-cell is being enabled, the design space for what innovators can build has just expanded dramatically. The constraint was never technology. It was just outdated regulatory permission structures. Number three, physical infrastructure is back. The next decade of returns will come from people who build real things in the real world. Towers, satellites, fiber, manufacturing, energy, housing. The software layer is important. It will always be important. But the physical dimension, the physical abundance, it's what's going to become increasingly important. Number four, default to building. The regulatory posture is shifting from justify why you can do this to let's enable deployment and figure out problems in real time as they occur. That's the right frame. It's the builder frame. Now, you might be asking yourselves, well, what about the downsides? Here's my take. A lot of this is nonpartisan. It's non-ideological. More spectrum is not a political issue. Satellite application processing backlogs are bad, and we should want them to be clear, and we should want applications to move faster. These are questions of good government, of engineering, of economics. Look, here's the core insight. We built the highway system in less than a decade. We put people on the moon in less time than that. We built the internet, GPS, commercial aviation, the electric grid, and the internet itself, and we did it because we decided to build it. We aligned the policy and the capital and the talent behind those decisions. And the Build America agenda at the FCC is the same impulse as applied to the 21st century. It's about choosing abundance over scarcity, speed over stasis, deployment over excessive deliberation. We can just do stuff. But more than that, we can do it big. Thanks so much, and I'm happy to take a question or two if time permits.
Thank you so much for your remarks. I'm Angie Cronenberg, and I'm a consultant in the tech and telecom space. Really wanted to get your comments about some of the work that the commission is doing on pole attachments. As you said, it sounds really boring, but it's really important. And you recently had a complaint that you made a pretty major decision on about what's considered fair in terms of cost allocation. Do you anticipate that you're going to have additional decisions coming out to really help parties truly understand what the obligations are and the economic obligations related to pole attachment access?
Thanks so much for the question. No news on that front. I know that's a very difficult issue owing to the sort of particular economics of the bilateral monopoly situation. And so that's one where we're always looking to make incremental reforms, but we know it's hard and understand that there's a greater demand for clarity.
Hi, Harold Feld with Public Knowledge. First of all, I love it when the FCC FCCs and focus on infrastructure and boring technical stuff is exactly where I love to see the FCC go. My question is, building on the recent 6 gigahertz order, do you see a pipeline for unlicensed spectrum in the same way that there is now a pipeline for licensed spectrum? And also, I don't know if we'd call it a pipeline, but certainly a number of potential targets for satellite spectrum.
Yeah, pipeline might be too authoritative of a word, but we're always thinking about things we can do on unlicensed, new bands, new flexibility, new candidates, and we're doing that across all of our different spectrum stacks, whether it's satellite spectrum, terrestrial, unlicensed. So it's something that we're always thinking about.
I love how you're talking about the importance of hard tech, and your boss and the FCC has made a really concerted effort to engage people who are actually building this hard tech, wherever it may be, Space Coast, towers, fiber. Can you talk about how that experience is helpful with actually engaging in this policy? Whereas a lot of us go to conferences here in DC, we stay focused in the Beltway. How have you guys gotten out of here, and how has that informed the way you guys are approaching these issues?
So when the chairman first became a commissioner, he got a case of cabin fever inside his small DC office, and he wanted to get out and talk to people who were actually building the telecom networks, doing the hard work. And so he initiated a series of what he now calls car trips. And that's included climbing towers, splicing fiber. And I think those have been really formative experiences and sort of part of the broader political zeitgeist. There's a lot of stuff that's happening outside of DC where people are putting hammer and nail, and they still remain extremely critical. And you can see that as something as mundane as like our housing shortage. That's not like an app issue. That's not a broadband capacity issue. That's an issue of regulatory permission structures and people just not being able to build. And so once you go out there and you see how much physical construction and labor is actually needed to put some of these gargantuan networks into operation, it gives you a deeper appreciation of the policy challenges that you have to clear.
How do technology in your company work in everyday people's lives?
Well, I think with AI, it's really revolutionizing the way people are working. One of my roles here at the FCC is chief AI officers to bring the productive abundance of AI into our workforce responsibly and to make sure that the government is not 10 years behind the private sector, but maybe 2 or 3.
And my second question is, what are some of the benefits for working in a technology world?
Well, I think one of the benefits is it's never boring. There's always so much happening, and it's a great time to be alive. It's the most consequential developments of our time. So it's a great space to work.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you for your comments. And I certainly agree that a lot of this is very bipartisan. And I hope I don't violate that by saying that, as the Wall Street Journal reported the other day, one of the barriers to the build agenda is workforce. And the administration's immigration policy has created significant problems in a variety of different sectors, including fiber deployment. Certain sectors, including hotels, have been able to prevail on the administration to reduce immigration enforcement, to enable the workforce. Has the FCC talked to the administration about the workforce issues in terms of deploying fiber?
Yeah, I have news to share on that front. All right, thanks everybody. It was great to talk to you.